All right, welcome everyone to Flatiron School's Data Science Virtual Open House. All right, so before we get started, again, for anyone that just joined, in the chat, if you can click that blue button to drop down to to everyone, so we can all see each other's conversation. This will be kind of our main source of communication. No need to drop anything in the Q&A. We can pretty much peruse the chat. It's a small-ish group, so any questions you have, throw it in the chat, just in case folks have any repeat questions or anyone's a little bit shy of throwing it in the chat. As I said, this will be recorded and sent to you within I would say 48 hours, roughly. Take a little time, but we'll get it up to you. And with that being said, thank you for joining us tonight. Our goal is to provide you with as much information on the data science program as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. We're good? Okay. All right. So introduction. So my name is Jelani Thomas, and I currently work as the product marketing manager for data science. Also presenting is Marissa Medley, Senior Account Executive. I'll let her introduce herself. I'll just say a quick little fun fact about me is I'm currently a data science student as well. Didn't start out as one. I've worked at Flatiron School for close to 3 years in marketing, and chose to go through the data science course at a very slow pace as to not disrupt my full-time work. So Marissa, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa. I'm the senior admissions lead for the data science program. I've been with Flatiron for almost 3 years now. A fun fact about me, I always try to switch it up in each one of these. Maybe a fun fact about me is I'm a cat mom. I do have a cat. Her name is Avalanche. And a fun fact about Avalanche is we thought she was about 1 year old when we adopted her, and we took her to the vet, and she's closer to like 9 years old. So she catfished us. So we thought she was a younger cat than what she actually is. And now she's living her best life here in my apartment. So
That I'm learning more and more about you as we go through these. That's hilarious. Now I'm going to switch up my fun fact is that I love screenwriting. And that's why I have this beautiful book about creating stories, which also plays into data science, creating stories. So a little background about Flatiron School. We were founded back in 2012 by Adam and Avi with the sole mission of creating an alternative education model that provides students with 21st century skills necessary to succeed in tech. Outside of data science, we also provide software engineering, cybersecurity, and product design. So in the last 9 years, we've placed thousands of students into new careers and continue to do so into the tech industry. Did not change. There you go. So we're proud to say that our work has gotten us recognition in sources like Course Report and Career Karma, both with excellent reputations. So what is data science? I assume most of you know, but I think it's a good way to sort of level set. So data science is a field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights, from structured and unstructured data. In short, you're kind of analyzing data to solve business problems and inform decisions for the business. I like to widen that definition to not just mean business decisions. I think you're also using this for, I think you can use this for organizations, especially in the space for data for good, which a surprising amount of folks entering our data science program are super interested in. How do we use data ethically? How do we use data to make our world better instead of just, aligning with earning more profits for businesses? So something to explore, something I'm happy to talk about as well. So you think about the data science process. I think this workflow really showcases the life cycle of a very, very simple data science problem. The business problems you'll solve will be far, far more complicated than this. But I kind of think this illustrates the point. So any data science problem starts with trying to understand the business problem. That's what you're here for. So in this case, this hypothetical scenario, let's say you wanted to open a restaurant. So you wanted to be able to predict how well a restaurant would do based on the cuisine you pick and the location you choose. And the next step you would take once you've understood the business problem is data acquisition. So finding that data necessary to support your business problem. In this example, you may use information from review sites like Yelp. You could use Yelp's API to pull restaurant information like cuisine, rating information, etc. So once you do that, now you have the information. It's more than likely pretty messy and difficult to pull anything meaningful from it. So you need to prepare the data in a way that's readable. So for the Yelp data, you could remove restaurants without ratings. You could remove outliers like very particular fusion cuisines that could throw your data off. Anything that will skew your information is essentially what you would be cleaning up and organizing it in a way that's far more readable, sort of like a conventional Excel sheet or Google sheet. Now that you got your clean data, you can look into exploring and understanding the information. Now that it's all clean and readable, you can answer questions like how many restaurants in each neighborhood, how many of each cuisine, and you can use some very simple, depending on the database, maybe some simple SQL to actually pull the right information, pull very specific queries on the data, depending on the size. Now that you have this clean data, you can also build a model that, in this example, helps you predict the rating of a potential restaurant based on the location and the cuisine. And also with moving on from modeling, once you have your model, you have your information, you can also visualize that information in a way that's easy for not only yourself to understand, but folks that aren't as technologically inclined. So I wanted to show examples of what you might do. So maybe you create a heat map that showcases the areas in which make sense for you to open up a restaurant based on the location and the cuisine that you indicate. So maybe, let's say, for example, it's an Italian restaurant and it's showing you in Seattle, these are the hot zones for restaurants like this. These are the areas where you should consider opening your restaurant. So that's the way you would sort of demonstrate your findings. And lastly, you would deploy and maintain that tool so that any user can enter a cuisine and location and then find that average restaurant rating or find that best location for a potential restaurant. So that's really the data science process in a really simplified way. But I also want to mention that there are obviously much harder business problems to solve, and this process doesn't always go this linear. So understanding the data science, the business problem will always be the beginning. But once you get to data acquisition, you might actually find out that, wait, maybe I don't understand that business problem as thoroughly as I need to, or maybe we need to revisit this business problem because maybe the problem isn't what we thought it was initially. So going back to the problem, you might end up providing some feedback and then leaving that situation with a better understanding of what the actual business problem is, which will then inform your acquisition, then inform your preparation, then inform your analysis, which will then sometimes bring you back to the data acquisition point. So it's not as linear as I just made it sound, and certainly not as simple, but that's the fun in it. That's the fun in it, trying to figure it out. So I hope that was a succinct way of putting that, the data science problem. Cool, it shows up, okay, great. So this is just an overall example of, not example, a demonstration really of what you'll be learning in the Flatiron School course. So as far as from a data analysis perspective, like it's, you know, it's Python, it's learning how to acquire data like we just explained, using CSV files, SQL, using APIs, web scraping, one of my personal favorites, and really what you're going to be doing on in your first project is a lot of web scraping. So that'll be, I think, fun for a lot of folks. How to use data cleaning and manipulation tactics using like libraries like pandas and NumPy, and data visualization tools, Matplotlib. Seaborn is my favorite. There's an ongoing battle between people that use Matplotlib and Seaborn, just because Seaborn just looks way cooler. You can do way more cooler stuff with it. And then on the statistics side of things, probability and I always mess this word up, combinatorics, Jesus. Sampling and confidence intervals, a lot of hypothesis testing, A/B testing, and a lot of linear regression. That is going to be a huge topic. I would say for anyone interested in going through this program, to introduce yourself to linear regression as soon as possible, before even starting the course. It'll make your life a little bit easier if the first time you're seeing it is not with the course. That is a huge tip that I have for anyone trying to join the program. Then you move on to stuff like machine learning. So learn the theory, predictive models for regression and classification, model evaluation. That is going to be huge. Linear regression, as I mentioned, logistic regression, KNN, which is K nearest neighbors, decision trees and random forest, all under the umbrella of machine learning. And then towards the end, now that you've had sort of like the foundational skills, we can tack on some of those advanced topics like unsupervised models, deep learning using neural networks, and image classification, time series, NLP, which is really cool, natural language processing, recommendation systems, which pretty much govern every any movie streaming service, any music streaming service, every single shopping experience that you have online, all done by recommendation systems. So yeah, it's a lot of these sort of advanced topics that we don't get to go super deep into, but we give you enough to make you very familiar with it. And then you can, once you're done the program, you can, explore deeper and hopefully get a better sense of what it's like. And that demonstration was worded like that because it's exactly how the program is built. So phase 0, which is the pre-work, you're doing Python and the basics of statistics. Then you're moving into phase 1, which is data analysis and data engineering, heavy on the more coding side and programming side. And then phase 2, you're going to move much more into the math side of things, with scientific computing and quantitative methods, another way of using statistics. And phase 3, you'll do machine learning fundamentals. Phase 4, like I said, advanced machine learning, that's where, NLP recommendation systems, things like that. And then phase 5, which is really cool, is your final project. So each phase you'll be doing a project that corresponds to the topic that you were learning. So kind of with, for example, phase 1, data analysis and engineering, your final project will include everything you learned from phase one. And I can tell you from experience that you will do, like in your final project, a lot of web scraping and data analysis in that. So, and in the final project is sort of the combination of everything, where you kind of start from ground zero with a project, an idea that you come up with, and that's personal, hopefully to you. It's just always better when it feels personal. Or you can think of an industry that you really are interested in getting into, and you can use that sort of as the basis for how you wanted to frame your project to look more attractive to people in that particular industry, which is another thing that I would highly recommend as you're going through the program. And in that final project, you get to showcase all the skills that you've learned, put it all together in one nicely tuned project. And then you have to present that project, because I mean, that's what you're going to have to do in the actual in the workforce. You're going to be presenting your findings and your analysis to folks that are not as data or technologically inclined as you. And you have to present the findings in a way that makes sense and gives them actionable things to actually work on, things that the business can do to meet their goals. So yeah, I think it's a good representation of what the work life will actually be, and prepare students for the workforce. You want to know about examples. I know you want to hear examples. I'll give you examples. So here is data science in action. So back in 2019, the New York Times published this interactive article called How Unpredictable is Your Subway Commute? This is where a team of data scientists used MTA data to predict the commute times based on your starting point and destination. So first of all, if you can just look at the visual, like this is a very, very well put visual to demonstrate a point. There's not a lot of explanation. It's one line that explains what it is, and the visualization kind of takes care of itself. And I think that is really a big takeaway from this project. So in this commute from 145th Street to 18th Street, a typical day takes 30 minutes, a good day takes 25 minutes, and a bad day takes 40 minutes, right? And this is sort of how data science is used. If I showed you the unstructured information that they pulled to make this visualization, it would not come across as readable, and it wouldn't come off as particularly easy to pull anything insightful from. But from a visualization like this, you can clearly see exactly what the author was trying to demonstrate. And I think that's a real big key here. Again, this is another great representation. Like without any context, I think you would be able to understand that, you know, in this one line, this dude hit a calm 37 footer to end a series, right? You can see the areas that are red and sort of, they look like they're warm. They look like, you can infer that those are places, that's areas where he excels at shooting from. And you can see in the lower left of that, next to his face, you can see that the corner is colder. So you can see that demonstrates, okay, he's not as adept at shooting in the corner there. To me, this is what great data science does, is that it takes a lot of unstructured data and creates a visualization that makes it really instant for you to understand exactly what I'm trying to communicate. So now with that being said, I can provide the context here, which is in 2018 in the NBA playoffs, point guard Damian Lillard plays for the Portland Trail Blazers with 7 seconds left on the clock. He shot a 37-foot shot and he made it, and he ended up winning that series for his team. And the player that guarded him and fans, probably the fans of the team that lost, said it was a bad shot. And a lot of people agreed it was a bad shot, but a team of data scientists actually published an article saying, no, Damian Lillard's series winner wasn't a bad shot. And in order to test that theory, they used data. And they learned that Damien actually shoots 40% from that distance. Now, I mean, on the fate, when you look at it, like the eye test tells you that's a bad shot, but the data tells you that it's not. And what they actually found is that there are 3 players in the league for which 37 feet is actually a good shot. Damian Lillard, Trae Young, and of course, the greatest shooter ever made is Steph Curry. And it actually changed the way basketball is played now. It changed the way coaches coach their team. And now you can see in 2021, 3 years after that shot, that teams have stretched their offense to be able to play further and further out and are looking for players that can do this well. But that doesn't happen unless there is statistical evidence that that shot is actually a good shot. Cool. All right. This is the last of the projects that I have to show you. So this was actually a capstone project from one of our students. This student built a dashboard to examine how women are represented in film and presented data-driven insights for end users with a dashboard that you can see on the right side there that allows users to explore the data that most interests them. So this project was basically you can create particular parameters and see if a particular film had like a female director, a female producer, and kind of see how well a particular movies or a list of movies scored on its male to female equity in that particular project. So the data science skills that she learned here helped her build something that someone can actually interact with, which is a really important distinction from just a data analyst, right? So something to keep in mind as you go through this is that there's a bunch of different paths in the data professional world, and an analyst obviously is, I think, the most junior of those roles, but still nothing to sneeze at. But it's important to understand like what a data scientist does and ultimately what a data engineer does as well. So we can get into that later. Cool. I think everyone should be somewhat familiar with Zoom because we're on it. So that's one of the tools we use daily in our teaching. Slack, because we're not able to be with each other physically just yet, we use Slack for a lot of our communications, and of course Git and GitHub, uploading our projects and even admiring the work of others, which I think is important to find inspiration in the work of others. Cool. So, excuse me. COVID-19 obviously decimated our in-person experience, but it's slowly coming back. And now the campuses are slowly opening. And what do I mean by opening? So for instance, in New York City, and there's a couple other locations. I'll get those locations to you guys shortly. I don't want to misquote it, so I won't say it, but New York for sure, just because I'm in Brooklyn, so I've been to the campus. We've opened that campus up to students who want to come in and just work from that campus. If students want to meet up with each other that are in the same city, they can meet up at our Flatiron School campus. There are community managers there. Chicago is definitely one of the cities. And we're trying to slowly but surely ease our way back into a campus experience. Right now, we have our software engineering program cohort, our first software engineering cohort for an in-person experience actually started today. So we are slowly but surely easing our way back into it.
And I can even add some color here. So just so everyone's clear, the Flex and Live programs that we'll be describing in this presentation are fully remote options for students. As Jelani said, we're doing a phased reopen approach with some of our other campuses. So some key campuses are opening in phase 1, which is community space. almost like if you are near one of these campuses, you could use it as co-working space to work with other students. And then, as Jelani said, we're hoping to slowly introduce teachers at some of these campuses. And New York City is the first campus to pilot this. So we did have our cohort that started today. And we're hoping to have a couple in January as well. So all is not lost if you didn't make it into this New York City one, which if you're on this call, you probably didn't. But just talk to your admissions lead, because they'll have more information about the specific campus you might be near and what your options are for that course. But what we'll be describing in a little bit are all virtual options.
Yes, all virtual. So thank you, Marissa. So these are the two different pacing options. Again, they're both completely virtual. Live, I'll just kind of talk about, each one. The full-time data science live program is synchronous, 15 weeks, 9 hours per day, and easily our program with the most day-to-day accountability. I think that's a really, really important distinction, and it requires students to know themselves and the method in which they learn the best. So if you want to learn from like live lectures and learn in a community with other students synchronously, then this is the program for you. With our Flex program, it's asynchronous, and that's the biggest difference between that and the live. So there's no 9 to 9 hours per day. I almost said 9 to 6, but it's not always 9 to 6. The 9 hours a day commitment, it's not like that at all. You set your own schedule, you work independently. With this option, you can sign up for still optional study groups, which highly recommend. One-on-one with instructors. I mean, that is an invaluable tool. I found that myself. It's incredible to be able to talk one-on-one with the instructor and kind of feel kind of safe in the confines of just a one-to-one conversation. And with our Flex program, you have the option to finish it in as many as 60 weeks. Now you can finish in as many as 20 weeks, you can do it in 40 weeks, 30 weeks, what have you, but you have to finish it within 60 weeks. So, and as I mentioned, for anyone who came on the call late, me joining the program myself as a student, I joined on the Flex program. So I'm 100% doing the 60-week just because of my job requires me to be, full-time. So if you work full-time, it's possible, and it's hard, but it's certainly possible. Again, so this is sort of the live data science program highlights. So again, it's equivalent to our campus program. It's just running remotely, 15 weeks, synchronous, 9 hours a day, Monday to Friday. You can expect to put in about 50 hours per week. And when I've asked students in the past, like why they chose this program, maybe over like the Flex program, it was because it was the fastest paced and most supported option. So just keep that in mind. If speed, or I don't even want to say speed, because speed makes it sound like it's rushed. I think there's maybe an implication there. I'd say it's our most efficient, right? We get to, if we have the time to work with you this often, every day, Monday to Friday, homework for the weekends, and after the normal 9 hours a day, then you're going to get to that goal a lot sooner. But it's the rigor is, I think, pretty much consistent. So here are some of the expectations as a live student. So multiple hours of supported learning each day, including daily touch points with your cohort, morning stand-ups, evening stand-downs. Like, it's a great way to sort of start and end the day. Group work with, of course, instructor help. You have peer programming sessions, you have lab time with instructional staff, you have community support, a lot of community support. And social events, as many as we can kind of get off, a lot of like happy hours to try to break up the monotony of like having to, work all the time. It's not like when we were back in school where we had recess to kind of break it up. We're adults now. So we try to sneak in a happy hour, maybe having like an alum come back and speak, or even having like industry professionals. That's a really great one too. But one thing amongst the things that I've mentioned here that I want to highlight is the Feelings Friday towards the end. So a common thing that happens with students, and I don't think anyone should feel ashamed about it, is especially when they first come into the program, is that they suffer in silence, especially if they feel like they're struggling out the gate. And we don't want you to struggle in silence. So this is really an opportunity to speak to other students who may be feeling some of those same feelings, because, as corny as it sounds, we actually are in this together, right? Like, we want you to succeed. You want you to succeed. We wouldn't even have a business if it weren't for, well-intentioned students like yourself. So our destinies are certainly tied together. So a lot of times people think they're unique in their feelings until they realize, and this happens so often, you realize the person who appeared the most confident actually had the exact same fears and insecurities as you. So it's actually a really, really great bonding experience. So I really wanted to get that point across, because when prospective students ask me about like what makes Flatiron School different from the competition, I'm like, from a technical perspective, we're all kind of teaching you the same stuff, to be honest, right? But my answer is it's a great community of learners, and I don't know how we do it, but we do a really great job of bringing the right type of people together in an environment, so it ends up being the best environment to learn really, really difficult subjects. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. If the question was in your mind about like what makes Flatiron School different, I think that's the key difference right there. So moving on to our Flex program, as I mentioned, you can choose the pace that you want, but you don't have to be confined to 20, 40. You are confined to 60 weeks though. It has to be no more than 60 weeks. And you can do it in 55 weeks or 25 weeks. That's irrelevant, but as long as it's done at least within 6 weeks. You get to work through lectures and labs with access to on-demand recorded lectures. I will say that I have used a lot of the recorded lectures to help myself through some of these labs. Live study groups are so helpful to just kind of bounce thoughts off of people and just kind of getting to know your fellow Flex students. Regular one-on-one times with the instructors, that's super helpful. You kind of schedule that as you need it. And yeah, and it's flexible. So you can kind of ramp up as, if you want to, try to get it done in 20 weeks and then, something in life happens and you need to like scale it all the way back down to maybe 45 to 50 weeks. So yeah, options there.
And just to hop in on some of these highlights, a lot of the things that Delaney described for live are also present in Flex, such as like community events, chances for you to connect with other students. Another great thing to think about with the Flex is the 20-week Flex is still very fast to go through the course, but it is best for students that maybe just take more creator time. It might just take you just a little longer to absorb material, or you might be someone who enjoys being able to go at things a bit at your own pace. Whereas in live, it is more of a time crunch in that it is synchronous. You have a set start date and end date. So just keep that in mind, that a 20-week Flex could be good for someone who wants to go out in a full-time setting, but enjoys having a little bit more creator time to problem solve.
And just to answer this question real quick in the chat, how often are live study groups? Um, they're at least once a week, that I know. I've seen, I don't know if it's like,
So we do about like 25 a week. There should be at least 3 dedicated per phase a week. More typically, it's 4. So as Delaney was saying, like the program's broken down into 5 phases. So there should be at least 3 lectures that are relevant to the phase that you're in, that you could join. Also keep in mind that Flex has dedicated live study groups, but you also have the luxury, you can actually join the study groups that are happening for live if you'd like. You get a calendar of all the study groups. You can opt into as many as you'd like.
yeah, I was gonna say one at least because there was one live study group that was pretty consistent that I always saw, but I'm glad you jumped in on that one. And speaking of jumping in,
Thinking of jumping in. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna share screens. Hopefully this will work. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I won't spend a ton of time on this slide, but I'm going to walk out through the admissions process and just how that works here at Flatiron School. So we'll go through each one of these sections pretty much in depth. Okay, so number 1 question we get is probably just like, when should I be applying? For the data science live course, we usually have start dates every 6 to 12 weeks, depending on where you're located. And for Flex, we have start dates every 3 weeks. So I never think it's really too early to apply. You can at least start the conversation with admissions if you're thinking of, I want to make a career change. I've thought through if I can handle a course with what else is going on in my life, and like, you want to do something tech focused. It's a really good time to apply and reach out to admissions. You do not need to have extensive Python knowledge. You do not need to be an expert in statistics. You don't need to already know these things. I mean, that's why you're taking a program. So if you don't have any of these under your belt, it is still okay to apply. Your admissions lead will be super realistic and like things you'll want to work on before you start and anything that would be relevant to your success. So don't think you have to take 25 Udemy courses on your own before applying to the program, because very often, like the internet's a double-edged sword. There's a lot of free material out there, but it can be really difficult to know, like, what should I be focusing on? What's the most important thing to really get me where I gotta go? So talking with admissions is really the best way to assess that. We can often point you in the right direction if some prep is needed, or let you know that you might be ready to start the program. You also don't need to know all of the logistics in terms of like every single payment option we offer. These are all things you would cover with admissions. And honestly, it's sometimes best to chat with us to get the most relevant information. So as long as you know you're ready for a career change, you've thought through the course and like what your time commitment might be, definitely put in an application. Now, things that you can use to kind of assess if you're ready or what course is right for you is we actually have a lot of free prep material on our website. We have free prep for every single one of our courses, including data science. So say you're going between 2 courses, throw a chat on with admissions, start on free prep. It is a really good place to start to see like what you want to keep coming back to. On our website, if you just go to flatironschool.com, and the upper left-hand corner is the courses tab, and all of our free courses are towards the bottom here. And this screenshot is actually old because now we have product design, so you can even look at that, but you'll definitely find data science here and you can get started. All of our material on our website is free. So you just create a profile and then you can start on a lot of really cool data science things. There's like a cool one like song analysis, things that get you started in Python. So I highly, highly recommend to check out our website and start dabbling in some free material and just see like, could you see yourself doing this for a day-to-day job? After you've kind of done your due diligence and have scoured the website, tried to figure out kind of what course is the right next step, you've landed on data science, it's now time to put in a written application. Things that we're looking for in an application. I personally am looking that students are well researched and that they tell me a bit about themselves. it's the worst thing when I see that someone just put no technical background on their application, and then I talk to them and I hear all these like really relevant technical things they've done, right? Just because you think it's not technical enough. If you have advanced Excel background, if you have experience in Microsoft suites, if you know how to write a function in Excel, if you have coded a little website or a game on your own, those are all really cool things that, although you're not like building a model, like it's still very relevant to like things you've worked on technically. So definitely tell us a bit about yourself there. Ask questions, like things you might be worried about that we could cover in the interview. You can do that in your application as well, but really showcase yourself and your skills. These are all of our values here for Flatiron School: pursue mastery, work together, radiate positivity. A lot of our interviews are surrounded by these values. So ways you can demonstrate that written in advance are always great. So just, give us a little bit of something to go off of in your interview and tell us a bit about your background. Another pro tip is that we can actually see if you've done any free materials. So that's always a really good jump start. If I say like, I see you've completed all of these lessons in our Python work. It's something that we can talk about during your interview, how you enjoyed it, all of those types of things. And if y'all have any questions, you could throw them in the chat and we can always answer them after if I don't get to them during this call. Okay, so you've now put in your application. Next year, you're usually invited to complete an admissions interview with someone on the admissions team. Our admissions advisors are usually trained in the discipline they're focusing on. So all of the data science admissions leads are trained solely in data science. Well, not solely, but primarily in data science. So they should be able to answer like most questions that are thrown at them. And what does an admissions interview look like? So this is a 20-minute non-technical Zoom call. There are options to do it as a phone call, if that might work better for you. So you could either let your admissions lead know, or you can do an audio only call on Zoom. Lots of people are like fitting this in on breaks at work, things like that. Definitely just let us know if you prefer a phone call. If you are going to use Zoom, please just download it in advance. It is Zoom's specialty that it will stop working right when you need it. So definitely test your Zoom connection, because it's only a short amount of time we get to chat. Although I don't want anyone to ever be intimidated by our processes, we do expect students to take it seriously. Ultimately, we hope you find a job in the field, right? This is your first step. So just try to be on time. Realize like we're interviewing a lot of students, so we're trying to really maximize the time that we're chatting with you. So definitely be on time, be in a place where you can chat effectively, and come with questions. It is your time to ask those questions. There are no stupid questions. I also really encourage you to ask questions, because even if you might know a friend that went through the program, maybe something changed, right? Since the time they started and when you're going to be doing it. So don't assume, just like ask us a question you're wondering, and we are happy to answer it during the call. And if you guys have no questions, it'll be like a lot of dead air, because usually I'll wait it out because I know a question's going to come. So just come prepared with questions. Next step in our process is you'll be asked to complete an admissions assessment. This is actually something you're usually invited to do even before your interview. So you can knock it out before your admissions interview if you would like, but if not, you'll be invited to complete one if we want to move forward with you in the admissions process. So I'll walk you through what the admissions assessment looks like. Froze. Did it move, Jelani? No.
It's frozen right now.
Oh, okay. I think I'm good now.
Okay.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so the admissions assessment is a 15-minute general aptitude assessment. This helps us measure your ability to use new information, to think critically, and to problem solve. So this is a timed assessment, and in that time, you answer as many as you can of 50 questions. These are examples of the types of questions you might complete on the assessment. I don't think these are actual questions, so you don't need to screenshot it. These won't be on there, but these are the types of questions that are asked. You'll notice that these are not software engineering questions. These aren't data science questions. These are more general. So like verbal questions, some math questions, some pattern matching. So we assess your spatial reasoning, things like that. So helpful tips for the assessment. Give yourself a span of uninterrupted time to take the assessment. Do not take it when you're in your car. Do not take it when like you're picking up your kids, because like you do actually want to be focused, because it does play a part in your admissions decision. So just give yourself a quiet area where you could focus on the topics. And then another thing I like to just share with students is that less than 1% of students finish all 50 questions. I don't think that has ever happened. I don't think a student has ever done all 50 questions. So that really shouldn't be your goal. It's just to answer as many as you can. And typically students answer about 25 to 35. So maybe in that range would be a good goal if you want to give yourself a goal, but don't feel pressured to complete all of the questions. Just do the best that you can. What happens if you don't pass the assessment? So in the event that you don't reach a minimum threshold, we usually just ask you to try the same assessment again. You might have submitted it by accident. You might have had a computer issue. Maybe you're just not a good test taker. That happens quite often, that like you just might not tackle that test in putting your best foot forward. So you're usually asked to take the same assessment again. But something I would also love to highlight is the assessment is not the only factor we consider when making an admissions decision. It gives us a small bit of information, again, about how you use new information, how you problem solve in real time. But like we look at a number of factors. There are really 3 factors we consider, and that is your application, your interview, and the assessment. So if you do not do as well as you wanted to on the assessment, it is not the end all be all. It is just one factor that we consider. And we know we really just can't reduce students to a test score. So really, like us having a great interview or you putting in a quality written application also is highly factored into your admissions decision. Now about that admissions decision. So usually we are able to deliver your decision in the next couple of days after your initial interview. So I know myself, I usually am able to give an admissions decision in the next 2 days or so. It really depends on when we're able to review all those factors that we mentioned. So usually you're able to get an admissions decision pretty quickly. I think that we're really just trying to assess if students will be positive additions to Flatiron School. You might even get some additional work to work on from your admissions lead. Like maybe they feel like you might want to brush up on some things. Maybe if you're brand new, they'll ask you to do a bit of the free courses to see if you really enjoy them. But typically you do hear back from us fairly quickly. Oop, I think I froze again.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
There we go. Another big thing we're trying to establish is, will students be successful working through things like our pre-work? So pre-work is required for all of our students, for all of our courses to complete before you actually start in class. If you were looking for maybe a technical gate, your pre-work is kind of your technical gate. Now that's really there to be sure students have the fundamentals, that they'll be able to like go through the fast pace of the course, or even in your flexible program and feel like they're well prepared. We're not just throwing you into a setting without getting some background there. So you'll see that a lot of boot camps or programs like ours might make you do your technical work in the very beginning, front load. Do they know the technical stuff they need? At Flatiron School, we found students do much better when they have a little bit of support working through some of the technical skills. So that's a bit later in our process. So specifically for data science and actually all of our courses, students get support while you're going through your pre-work. We have a pre-work Slack channel that's quite active. And it's an opportunity for you to get other students that are starting as well and working through pre-work, as well as teachers to help you if you get stuck. So for example, this student got a weird error message. They weren't sure how to get their code to run. They pasted their error message. 5 people jumped in and helped them solve that lab. We also usually have instructor-led office hours every week for pre-work. So it's for data science is about 40 hours of material you'll go through that are really focused on the fundamentals so that you feel ready for class. Okay. So after you're done with your pre-work and you've gone through a few steps in the admissions process, you've taken the course, you've graduated. I think now a big question for a lot of people is like, am I going to get a job? Right? A lot of you're making a career change. So I'll go through some steps to like career services and what you get as a graduate of Flatiron School. All right. So I think that your one-on-one coach is probably one of the largest value adds you have in your tuition at Flatiron School. As Jelani was saying, it is up there with community and curriculum is career coaching. I guess it's the 3 C's, 4 C's, career coaching. Anyways, it is quite important. And I think in the process overall, and it really makes a difference when you're in the job search having a one-on-one coach. So you get that with Flatiron School. You do get a dedicated one-on-one career coach. They do quite a bit with you. They will start with the basics. They'll help you redo your resume. They looked at your LinkedIn. You'll come up with a networking strategy that you'll deploy. You will do a mock tech interview, a mock HR interview to see what you're really strong in and what you want to keep working on. And this coach will work with you every single week post graduation until you land a job. So we'll go into some of the nitty gritties of career coaching in the next slide. So there's kind of 3 buckets you'll focus on with your career services time with us. One is technical skills. You might not learn everything you need to know in a 15-week boot camp. We get a lot of information from your project work. You also, like I said, we'll do some mock tech interviews and mock HR interviews. So we get some feedback from them. And for data science, we actually have post curriculum that you'll work through depending on feedback we do get from your technical coaches. And you're going to keep working on your tech skills even after you graduate. Another thing that we really value is blog posts. So technical writing, like actually publishing content that can make you stand out from other people, even just talking about your experience, things you've self-taught, projects you've worked on. We do actually encourage technical writing. And then networking. You will come up with a full kind of networking strategy that you will deploy with your coach. How do you activate your current LinkedIn community? You just went to a really cool webinar. How do you reach out to the person that hosted that and make them a connection? So you'll do a lot of this work with your coach, and also a lot of work just narrowing down your job search as well. Something about data science is it has a lot of unique job titles. Almost every industry calls their data science team something that's like not a data scientist. It's funny because I think even here at Flatiron School, like we teach data science and our data scientist called like director of insights or something, right? Like, so that's something that can be really hard to navigate if you just don't know, and your coach will help you narrow things down so that it is a more nuanced search. Another large aspect of this are employer partners. So these are really great companies that we have actually hired grads at. We got to update this, Jelani, because I know we had those NASA placements too, and those are like my favorite to talk about because it's just so cool. But yeah, we've placed people at all these big name companies. So our employer partnerships team actually kind of works in the background. They'll circulate your info around relevant partners. If those companies want to move forward with you, you'll work actively with them in addition to what you're doing with your coach. And again, these are some really great employer partners we have, but I even say like there are really cool small ones as well. In NYC, we have a really good relationship with like Datadog and Girls Who Code, a lot of really great nonprofits. So it depends on what you're interested in, but we probably have placed someone in a relevant partnership and can help you out, at least making a connection. So yeah, these are ones that we're really proud of, but also there's plenty out there that aren't just highlighted on this list. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why my thing's so delayed today. Oh, next is, I already gave you guys a little highlight, you got a sneak peek, but next I'll review some things from our outcomes report. We do a jobs report every single year. So I'll go through just some highlights for the data science course that we're proud of. And just to highlight our outcomes report in general is that we do an audited outcomes report. So these are all very transparent outcomes that go through a large vetting process and reports on all of our students that were job seeking. Oh, slowly but Steadily? No?
There we go.
Okay, there we go. So we have an 86% job placement rate for data science. We'll give some claps there. This is an amazing number. We had so many graduates that year. Something that's also interesting about the summer is, I mean, a lot of these grads reported here got smacked with COVID right in the middle of their job search, and we still got really great outcomes. So this is an impressive stat for us. Good job, students and teachers and career coaches. Another thing that's awesome is that they earned a livable wage. So this is the average starting salary of our grads, $85,000 for data science, which I think is impressive, especially because this is an average. People that made a little less, a little bit more, but all around this amount. And it just shows that, you know, you're getting entry level positions and are still able to get a meaningful, livable wage. So this also makes me quite happy. This is a highlight that I just like, is that it's our class makeup for 2019. We had 33% female students, so we beat the national average, which is only 21%. I didn't want to brag too hard, but if you actually check out the outcomes report, women had a 90% job placement rate in 2018. So I just thought that that was amazing. It really shows that, you know, women are now having seats at the tables when these technical conversations are happening. They're on tech teams, they're informing more decisions. So, you know, if you are female, we want you here at Flatiron School. We want you all, but I just really think that this is a good number that we're pushing to beat the average. So we're always trying to get to that 50-50 parity between men and women. Now, this is a less inspiring slide, but still very important, is like the tuition for the program and how you would actually pay for the course should you want to pursue it. So the tuition for all of our programs for both live and flex is $16,900. That is just our tuition across the board. Typically, when a student is admitted, they would pay a $500 deposit. And then the remainder, you could either pay up front, which would just be an upfront payment to us before you start in class. You can do a loan option. These are actually, I think I have to update this slide. These are actually 36-month loans. They're not 42 months. It's about 3-year loans. And we work with 2 providers, Ascent and Climb. They are both featured on our website if you want to check them out. They have quite flexible repayment options. There's like an interest-only loan option until you graduate. We actually have a couple deferred options through our loan providers where your loan is deferred until graduation. So you can check them out to see if they work for you. And then we also do offer a monthly installment plan. And this side is a little out of date because now we offer this for both live and flex. So regardless, you can take advantage of our installment plan. It just splits your tuition equally over a year with no interest. So you could see what would work best for you. We also do offer quite a few scholarships right now. I can think of 3 off the top of my head that we're offering. You can check all those out on our website. These usually range from about $1,000 to $3,000 that would cover your deposit and a small portion of your tuition. Off the top of my head, we have the Access Scholarship that's geared towards underrepresented groups in tech. We have the Women Take Tech Scholarship. We also offer a Merit Scholarship. So there's a few scholarships running right now that you might be able to see if you're eligible for. So you can read about them on the website, but you can also just ask your admissions lead. They will let you know any scholarships that are running, and then you can apply and see what you might be eligible for. All right. I think I have to take out my headphones for y'all to hear this, but this is just a video I like. Can you hear me? Can you hear me talking? Okay, great. So you should be able to hear this, and if not, just let me know.
Throughout high school and college, I studied foreign languages, but after I graduated, I really fell in love with technology.
And I started getting this feeling that I really wanted to learn how to code, but it was this really scary thing because I didn't want to go back to school and was feeling like a little bit old and stuck.
And I looked into how I could learn how to develop, and everyone, and everyone said the Flatiron School was the place to be.
I remember the first couple of weeks, we're sitting there going, this is the weirdest group of people in one place. It's kind of magical to be in an environment like that.
We had people from backgrounds like lawyers, English majors, baseball players, Muay Thai fighters. It was just an absolute crazy mix of people.
The more you stripped away anyone's preconceived notions about what it was going to be like, which is easier to do when you have such a mixed group, it just really all becomes about learning to code and learning to love to code.
We really learned that everyone's a beginner at something, and so if we're a beginner at coding, that's totally okay. It's totally normal.
You learn to love what you build, and I think that's the most important part about being a developer.
These people in my class are developers now. It's just awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
My name is Stephen Brooks. I'm a web developer at Zillow.
I'm an associate software engineer at Constant Contact.
I'm an iOS developer at Venmo, and I'm a graduate of the Flatiron School.
And graduate of the Flatiron School.
And I'm a graduate of Flatiron School.
Okay. Again, a little cheesy. I just really like that video. It even warms my heart a bit more that campuses are going to be reopening. So we'll be able to have that in-person presence again. But also warms my heart that we were able to do that virtually. So now I saw that there were a few things in the chat that we can maybe cover. But other than that, we can also just open things up for questions. If y'all would like, you could throw anything you're wondering in the chat. Yeah.
Don't be shy.
I know, don't be shy. Maybe we did a great job and there's just no question. I don't think that's ever happened. Has it?
Although I think this was pretty thorough. Oh, thanks, James.
Thank you. What was the median for the 2020 salary outcome? Was it roughly the same as the average? We can't see the data points. Was just wondering if there's any outliers or anything. I don't know if we report on the median. We do have a full outcomes report. So if you went to our website, it has a highlights page, and then you can download the full 75-page report. But I don't want to send you on a wild goose chase. I don't know if we report on the median. I think we only report on the average. Is that to your understanding too, Jelani?
Yeah, I think so. Are there any outliers though? I think with everything you're gonna get an outlier for sure, a few at least, because at least with data science, like some people come in. And I think this is just across disciplines. Some folks come in more with more experience, so maybe they may start at a salary, especially if they live in New York where the cost of living is high. The salary might be pretty high, and but I think there's not enough to skew the average enough to sort of to falsify, not to say falsify, but like to throw the number off or throw the balance of the numbers off too much. So I would probably say that the median is probably it's still somewhere near that average. Anyway, so to clarify, the in-person program in New York City means students only and no instructor in person. I've tried the online only, and it hasn't been helpful enough waiting for help and losing time to try to catch up on my own. So the in-person program, when it does, when we do it, there will be an in-person instructor. So.
Yes. So for the live option or the flex option, you do get daily teacher time though. So like I honestly think our flex option is better than an average online option because you're not just relying on recorded material. You can actually go to instructor-led study sessions like every single day. They also, I think, do daily office hours too.
Mm-hmm.
And then also for after-hour support, you can connect with a technical coach. I know just offhand, they work Eastern time till about 12 a.m. During the week. So they're there like pretty late, and they can hop on and screen share with you or work with you through Slack. Now for the one in-person cohort we have on the books perspective in January, that will just be like an in-person cohort. Like you'll go to class every day and have in-person instruction. But you get like a lot of teacher time with both live and flex, to be honest.
I just want to make one other thing kind of clear in terms of like expectations. And I think this is just like a good thing to keep in mind. That's as you go through the program, what we really want to encourage is for folks to be, even with the in-person, having an instructor a few feet away from you. We do encourage folks to embrace some level of independence and reliance on like your fellow cohort mates, because we want to build like sort of like the work environment, right? So like you think of it like if you had a problem at work that you're trying to solve, and you don't want to necessarily go to your manager and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Maybe you want to try to solve it on your own. And maybe that doesn't work out. Maybe you get a little bit ahead, you kind of understand what you need to do, but you need a little bit more help. You might ask a contemporary before you ask your manager. You might ask them, all right, so I was tasked with doing this. This is how far I've gotten. Do you have anything that could possibly help? And that's really what we want to mimic before we, in this example, the teacher is the manager. Before you go to your manager and say, hey, I don't understand this. And the reason for that is for the same reason you wouldn't do it in the workplace, is because if I'm the manager in that example, my first question is going to be, what did you try already? What have you done on your own to try to solve this problem? And if I see that you've done a ton of work to try to figure this out, and it's just like you need me to get you over the hump, then that feels like, okay, you've sort of exercised every option. So I want to make sure that we kind of make sure that you guys understand from an expectations perspective that we really want to mimic the work environment, because it's the best thing to prepare you for the actual work environment, you know? But yeah, and with that being said, we obviously want to support you as much as possible, because we know it's a difficult transition. So I think those two things can exist. Yeah, exactly. The little things. Yeah, and like I don't think there's no shame in saying like these things, like these little things are the ones that's like, oh, I don't understand these, trying to make sure those little things get shared up. Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, to ensure that that once you've taken it as far as you feel like you can, then we say, all right, cool, let's help you get over the hump and get those little things that you need to learn to kind of move on to the next step. So absolutely. But yeah, you're right. The in-person experience is cool, because, you know, you can just, you know, tap your neighbor like, hey, can you help me with this? On Slack, you'll have to like actually wait for somebody to message you back, whether it be a cohort mate or an instructor.
Another cool thing I think about the virtual options is like most people are doing their job search fully remote. And it is really nice to say, like, I know how to establish community remotely. I know how to keep up with a rigorous program remotely. I know how to use all the resources out there to problem solve. So it's actually been like an asset for students to talk about going through the program online.
Yeah, this is a good question. What types of successes and backgrounds have you witnessed that would be outstanding as a job candidate to be competitive amongst top employers?
Oh,
Okay.
This is a great question.
This is a really good question.
I don't know if I would say any one background is better suited than another. I mean, to be honest, we work a lot with career changers, people that don't have a relevant background in that field that are now looking to make a transition. I would say students that do the best in the program, which I think would thus be some of the best kind of like job seekers, are people that are naturally curious, and just that curiosity fuels their problem solving. It's not about being like the smartest person in the room. I really do think it's about being eager to learn and eager to like figure things out, and that just be a part of their work philosophy. Because there will be plenty of times in the program where you are just like, I don't know anything and everyone knows everything. And I don't know why I don't know this, but that's just like the nature of it. So I think like people that are okay with being uncomfortable, okay with going through a problem solving process, and okay with thinking outside of the box. I think those students do really well in their job search. I'll give maybe one example from career services that we just recently had. And this was actually for our software engineering program, our data science one, but still pretty relevant. We had a student who she really wanted to work for this job. Like she was so into it. They aligned on all of her values. She had her eye on them before she even took the course. But they work in a web framework that we don't teach at Flatiron School. So she made a whole strategy with her coach where she was going to take a week to self-learn the web framework. She wrote a blog about how her self-teaching went and then built a small like user tool to show that she knew how to use it. And then they did like a targeted LinkedIn approach to everybody on the product team. Like, I know you're hiring for an entry-level position. Many entry-level people don't know this web framework. You can share my blog with them. And they reached out to her. She immediately got an interview and got that job. I wouldn't have thought to do that. I would have just, put in my resume and been like, please call me. But that was a lot of work on her end, but she had a lot of passion and tenacity and kind of like made that happen with the support of her coach. So it's a really good example of like stuff you'll do in your search that like that strategy is something anyone could do, but her career coach really gave her the guidance to make it happen. But still so much work she did on her end, right? She really earned that placement. Yeah, just people that want to learn, I think, do the best. So that was a long-winded answer, but.
Just to add to that, I agree with everything you just said. You're absolutely right. I think another thing in terms of like what makes you stand out, and it kind of alludes to like what you mentioned, is just being very intentional about your experience. So when you come in here and let's say you have a background in finance and you want to stay in finance, that actually dictates how you move through this program, because everything you do should be with the intent of trying to get a role in data science. I mean, in a financial space. So when you think about the programming languages that you'll need, if let's say we don't teach R, but you know that R would make you competitive, but knowing Python and R would make you uber competitive, and we teach Python, that you need to understand the basics of Python and then be sure to make sure that you know the syntax of R and the type of the context in which it is used, what companies would probably use R over Python, like really being intentional about what you're learning in the program. So when you're done, the narrative that you've built over the course of your pre-Flatiron School career and your Flatiron School career is all geared towards the financial industry. So it should be a no-brainer for them to call you, because everything in your resume says that you are geared towards this. And then finally, your portfolio. Like, what have you produced? We live in a what have you done for me lately type of society. We want to know what you have done. You have to show and prove. And the projects that you create here, being very intentional with your final project is key. And then when you leave here, updating that project if necessary, adding stuff to it, that type of stuff. The commitment to constantly learning, which Marissa mentioned about curiosity. Can this be better? Can this model perform better? Like asking those questions, right? That to me is when you're going to get it's not just about getting a job, it's about getting the best employers to reach out. And the best employer might not be Amazon or Facebook or any of these big companies, right? The best employers are the ones that create an environment for you to grow and sort of flex your data science muscles, whatever muscle you want to flex, that is. So I think contextualizing what the best employer is for you is really important. And that just goes back to being intentional about your experience. What has been your favorite thing or experience in Flatiron School? Favorite?
I don't know if I could choose any one thing, but I really love we have a jobs channel in our Slack, in our employee Slack, like that me and Jelani use for Flatiron School. And we like post in real time job placements. And I think that's like my favorite part, because you'll see people that came from such a different industry, they get a really cool job, and like you remember talking to them and you remember that like when they were first starting. So I think that's my favorite like day-to-day thing. But yeah, I think like I interview a lot of students, so I hear a lot of student stories. And I remember specifically this student, and he worked in HR and he wanted to go into data science. He was very nervous about not having the math background that he just thought a data scientist had. So he did all of this work before even starting in the class on math skills. And then he gets in the program, and he kind of was like, I did all of this work, but I'm finding that like I already had a lot of the skills, like just the logical skills. And I think he was really excited that a lot of it was like communication skills, right? Like communicating with stakeholders and like figuring out the things to pull in the beginning to make sure all your data is not corrupt. And like the relationships he made were like his favorite part. And I think he just didn't realize it was such a human industry. And that's when we were back on campus. So I used to see him when I was coming for events and stuff, and he would give me an update. And I was like, he came so far from like, you know, where he started. So I think the student journey is my favorite part.
Yeah. At the risk of copping out, I think it's the same answer. I think the stories, like as I told you, again, this is all I'm about. I love a good story. The kind of triumph from when they come in and they're so nervous. They're like, this is so much money. This is such a big commitment. That's why I take it seriously when I say particular things, when I try to tell students about being intentional and taking your time and, measure twice, cut once, like all of these things that I say is mainly because I want you to make the right decision for you. And when I see certain students, there's a couple students that really stick out in my mind. And it's really the kind of the students that I've always gravitated towards are the ones with the non-traditional background. I love when people have no background in data science whatsoever, no math, no coding, no nothing. And all they have is ambition. And that's it. They have nothing but curiosity and ambition. And those are the ones that come in super prepared. They've done a lot of research, a lot of homework on what they want to do. And they understand it's an uphill battle, but they're like, that's the fun part. And I gravitate to those people. One person in particular is, he came from the music background. He came from the music industry. He was in the music industry for like, I don't know, like 8-9 years, something like that. And then I just remember him and I talking, and he was telling me about it. And he's like, I'm nervous, I don't know, but like, I gravitate towards like the problem solving aspect of data science. I'm like, well, go for it. And after a conversation, he went for it and ended up loving it. And he got a job. And guess what industry he got the job in? Music, of course, right? He loved music, but he really wanted to get much more on like the analytical side, the analytics and numbers side of things. And he ended up getting a job in music, and he loved it. I actually just saw him like 2 months ago. Yeah, roughly two or 3 months ago. And happy and healthy. That's all we can ask for, right? So yeah, I love when folks come from a non-traditional background. I'm a sucker for the underdog. I like when the underdog they say like, oh, you gotta have a math background, you have the statistics in your back pocket. No, ambition. That's it. That's it. Any more questions? That was a good one. I like that question. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for staying on. I think we'll leave it at that. That was a good note to leave it on. That great question.
So if y'all are thinking of applying, definitely throw your application in, or you guys can always schedule just a 10-minute chat with admissions. We have a small little data science team, so you might very well like chat with me or somebody else that I work very closely with. So we would love to hear more about your background.
Yeah. I'll send a follow-up email to you guys, recording 48 hours or so. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And to the person that was calling in from the Netherlands, please go to sleep.
Go to bed.
All right, take care, everyone.